Bill Sternberg, Bill Lyman. If I botch up your names, it's because I can't read your signatures. And Nancy Evans, Charles Wentworth, Judd Files, Susan Carpenter, Jennifer, I don't know, they're together, Ben Tamsky, and Joan Durant, and Nancy.
22 Jackson.
What? 22 Jackson Avenue, Noise. Okay, go right ahead.
Bill Sternberg, 153 Elm Street in Stonington. I'm opposed to this project. I'm opposed for a lot of reasons, but I'm not going to go into the details here because I don't have a vote. You folks have the vote. All right? At the end of this entire process, there's this resolution that you have to vote on. And to vote yes on it, you have to make some findings, right? You have to find that this project isn't going to adversely impact the neighborhood. You have to find that this project is in compliance with our own POCD, and you have to find that this project is in compliance with the Connecticut Coastal Management Act. Now, you can listen to the hired hands from the applicant, because they made the case that it does comply. Or you can listen to the Department of Environmental Protection, which made the case that this thing clearly doesn't conform with the Coastal Management Act. Or you can listen to your own town engineer, who has stated in your report that it's going to cause traffic problems and parking problems. I'm a career civil servant. I'm paid to protect the public interest. The people who wrote the opinion from the Department of Environmental Protection are just like me. They're my peers. They're paid to protect the public interest. They gave you their unbiased opinion about what's in the public interest. Our town engineer is paid to protect the public interest. And if he says this is going to cause traffic problems and parking issues in the neighborhood. So it's up to you who you listen to. But my advice is you listen to the public servants who are looking out for the public interest.
Bill Lyman, 579 Togwonk Road. It is with very mixed feelings that I have decided to speak in opposition to this plan. For reasons that I was a member of the committee that years back drafted the current plan of conservation and development, and I am currently the vice chairman of the POCD implementation committee. So I recognize that there are many, many aspects of what we've heard tonight here that can be viewed as a positive thing in terms of the guidance of the POCD. But the POCD is a complicated document. It has many, many different guidance to it, and it's going to boil down to a lot of judgment on your part as to perhaps what is the most important. I feel one of the most important guidance for enhancing the villages while protecting the character of the villages, which is something we talked about an awful lot, is encouraging village-scale development. My first reaction, and several people that have talked to me, was that these buildings were too big, too tall. They don't fit. When I look around Mystic has 3- and 4-story buildings, nothing more than 4 stories. So 5- and 6-story buildings just don't seem to me to fit the scale of Mystic, which is what our POCD is encouraging. I also reacted to a 200-seat restaurant. A 200-seat was described as a 3-story, 200-seat restaurant. That also just doesn't seem to me to fit the scale of Mystic's many restaurants. While the POCD encourages residential development, it clearly provides guidance that increasing residential densities in coastal flood zones should be avoided. And of course, this is what this is doing. Now, you know, maybe some residential addition or component would be acceptable, but I think a hotel and a large apartment building are adding an awful lot of density. The POCD guidance for development in the coastal areas is, again, that the town should provide water-dependent uses, and we've heard, I won't go into that, the recent report from the DEP certainly supports that. I too am concerned about the infrastructure issues that I don't feel have yet been properly addressed. I know we're concerned, many people here I think are concerned with the existing traffic, the existing parking, the existing sewer situation, and only see that a project like this will add to this. So not that those things can't be worked out, but I think you need to consider them carefully as you do work this out. So my bottom line is that perhaps smaller would be better, perhaps something a little different, perhaps I think many people that are in opposition to this thing would share the view that they like to see this area redeveloped, but are maybe reacting to the size of it, and maybe reacting that we're trying to put too many people in this spot. So this floating zone is a very important feature that we've added to encourage economic development, and I recognize that, but at the same time, you as a commission have been given this group, have been given the use of this tool that allows you to protect the community character while you're encouraging this development. So I think it's very important that, that you stick with that. Thank you.
My name is Joan Durant, and I live at 22 Jackson Avenue. First, I just will say that the presentation was lovely. You did a good job, but I just don't think it belongs here. Oh, and one other thing, too. I hear so much talk about the derelict buildings. All the time, it's, oh, we have to do something because these buildings have been derelict for so long. Well, frankly, I believe that that was the plan all along. The marina could have been kept up, but it wasn't. The buildings were left like that so that people will go by and they'll look at it and they'll say, gosh, look at these horrible buildings. We need to do something about it. So everyone that I have spoken to, friends and neighbors alike, are in total disbelief that this massive plan is even being considered. The more this proposal is reviewed, the more it's regarded as a total affront to the neighborhood. It does not conform to the town's plan of conservation, which states that future plans will enhance and not disturb the surrounding residential neighborhoods. I question the purpose of these regulations if, when convenient, they can just be ignored. Among those in opposition is the DEEP, which condemned the Smiles Wharf plan, citing flood risk and violations of both state law and 6 different elements of the town's own plan of conservation and development. Also, Deb Jones, Assistant Director of Planning and Development in Groton, who questioned the heights of the proposed buildings and the increase in traffic and noise. My husband and I purchased our property in 1987 because of the great views of Groton and the Mystic Hillsides, the quiet neighborhood, and the cove with its abundant wildlife.
I can't see you.
We appreciated the fact that the marina was zoned MC80, which meant it would continue as a working marina. By granting this plan as proposed, you will in essence be taking away the value of not only my property, but those of the surrounding neighborhoods. Our views will be restricted by the tallest buildings in Mystic. Our quiet neighborhood will be filled with noise and additional traffic. The addition of a hotel, apartment event building, residential units, and off-site parking will definitely have an impact on traffic and congestion, not only in our neighborhood, but in the town as well, and that is only common sense. The proposed living seashore would destroy an existing living habitat east of the marina, affecting current aquatic and area wildlife.
Time. How much longer?
I have one more paragraph.
Okay,
I have
fine.
just a
I had
little.
said at the beginning that they're welcome to come up. We're trying to get 2 minutes, but you're welcome to, wait a minute, please. I said at the beginning, you have 2 minutes, and if you didn't finish, when everyone else has spoken, you're welcome to come up and finish. I asked for no applause. I've been hearing a lot of applause tonight. So we'll try to get it going. Go right ahead. But we have a lot more to speak on your side, so I wanted to get everyone in
All right,
before we adjourn at 11 o'clock. If you want to come back next 2 weeks, we'll continue it. Go ahead.
I can finish it? Okay. All right. The proposed living seashore would destroy an existing living habitat east of the marina, affecting current aquatic and area wildlife. This would ultimately transform the character of the village of Mystic on the Stonington side. Nothing replaces a natural habitat. This is the first time I have dealt with various town commissions, and I am very disappointed in their attitude. The commissions have clearly acted as agents for the developers with zero concern or even passing curiosity for how the residents feel. They simply took the word of the developers. I hope that this board, each and every one of you, will have some thought for the residents of this neighborhood who will have to live with this project. I hope the members of this commission will vote unanimously to maintain the integrity of our community. I urge them to fulfill their duty and obligation to the residents and therefore deny support Seaport Marine's application for a zone change. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jennifer Martley, 10 Jackson Avenue in Mystic. The house that I live in I'm the fourth generation family member in the house. My grandparents, William and Magdalene, came from Germany to work in the velvet mills, followed by my grandparents, Leo and Catherine Martley, who lived there. My parents lived in the house when they were first married, and now I live there with my spouse. I came back to Mystic from when I lived in New York and knew that that's where I wanted to share my life with my spouse. Our concerns are, because Susan couldn't be here tonight, but our concerns are like the traffic. Today I was waiting in line for like 30 minutes, and it's not even summertime. Another thing is, adjacent to the proposed development are wetlands, which are in aid in providing environmental barriers and protection of our neighborhood from storm surge. We're dangerously vulnerable to flooding. Just take a look at the ponding that we already see when it occurs, when water is being pumped out by numerous numerous basements. Oh, and as for like pedestrians, and you were talking about having your employees park down at the Packer building, that street is very dangerous because there's no sidewalks on it, and we have like little older folks being wheelchaired down to the music series in the summertime, and traffic is really bad on that road, and it gets flooded, and I'm just concerned with all the traffic, and the hotel traffic could do some damage. That's it.
Thank you.
Hello, my name's Charles Wenderoth. I live in Essex Street in West Mystic and have property on High Street. I think this project is totally inappropriate. I'm not opposed to development, but I think rezoning from marine commercial to neighborhood development is unsatisfactory. I think it'll destroy adjacent properties and result in overcrowding with people, traffic, and congestion way beyond the area's ability to absorb the impact. I think the project will destroy a lot of what makes Mystic attractive and why many others choose to live there. Boatyard properties exist along the river as vacant parcels out of necessity for marine operations. They're not a blank canvas waiting to be exploited by developers. I don't think the project should ever have gotten this far. I think the town should have rejected it right off the bat. I noticed from the speaking roster in previous canceled meeting that those in favor are a lot of large developers, so naturally they're going to be for such a project. If this project does get approval, I can just see more of the same happening with any vacant parcel. It's just going to amplify the development of downtown Mystic. I love downtown Mystic. I arrived here in the 70s, and it was not necessarily a nice place. Some local guys developed some properties and built it up and turned it into what it is today. And I think you can take it too far and you can really ruin it. And you know, the architects, I love architects. I used to work for a developer. But the bottom line is they put a lot of spin on things. And to give you a good example of that, all you have to do is look at this auditorium. You can't get in and out of these seats. And that's a perfect example of what you're looking at here. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'll leave you my comments.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Nancy Evans, 40-year resident, live in Old Mystic, town of Stonington, one of the original founders of the Mystic Whitford Brook Watershed Association, longtime environmentalist, friend of the Mystic River on most occasions. However, it is in my backyard more frequently than I would like. I do not for the life of me understand why, when the DEP has told you you will be putting people in harm's way, you do not seem to focus on the fact that within the last 8 months, people's basements are now running 24/7 with sump pumps, and we are in a drought cycle. Hard to believe when it's raining this little bit, but we don't have the great usual amount of water that supports our trees and our environment. And that's because the sea level is, folks, rising. And the reason that we don't see it, it's incremental. When my friends tell me they have a house in Noank and it's coming over the seawall, never happened before. When the rocks up on the Mystic River are no longer there. When you drive down River Road, there isn't a time when it's not wet. This is now, this is happening, it's not to be ignored, and we're not alone. All the towns up and down the East Coast, up and down the East Coast are dealing with this. That's why the former mayor of Charleston is doing a speaking tour on what they have done to mitigate the flood damage to Charleston, to Annapolis, to Miami, Fort Lauderdale. It's now. It's happening now. You've been told by the DEP you are putting people in danger. A better option would be to purchase this property from the owners. I'm not sympathetic, or not unsympathetic, I should say, to the fact that they have a property that they need to do something with. I'd prefer it to stay a marine basis. But to purchase it and put in flood mitigation, the dry wells, 50 feet deep, the backflow preventers, are putting in all the other towns, put in the commercial pumps, and put in a permeable parking lot. And I hate to say it, I don't want to see Mystic a parking lot, but this is what you've got. And when they tell me that Cottrell Street is only 4 feet above the floodplain, 4 feet, and the level is supposed to be 11, who's going to pay for that? You think those people are going to get to the hotel? How are they going to get there? It floods. It floods so badly that at night you cannot tell where you are on the way to the restaurant because you could drive right off and you'd never know it. I'm not kidding you. I've been there and I've gone, let me think here. Now, which place is that? So I leave you with that. You're entrusted to do the right thing for this community. And on kind of an aside, I really resent being told that I am not for change's sake. I'm for change because you've got to think about what's real in this environment. That's all. Sorry.
Good evening. Ben Tamsky, 5 Edgemont Street, Mystic, Connecticut, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Mystic River Park Commission. And for the record, I signed up under general comments, but I'll speak now since I was called. Mr. Chairman and members of the Commission, the Mystic Fire District is a significant property abutter of the Smarler's Wharf proposal. As the stewards of Mystic River Park, the Mystic Fire District Executive Committee has asked us, Mystic River Park Commission, to respond to the public notice of a proposed development of Seaport Marine Knowing Shipyard. As such, we reviewed this proposal at our April 10, 2019 meeting and have some considerable concerns regarding its impact on our property and the immediate neighborhood. We were very pleased to see that the Town of Stonington zoning regulations, which help guide your decisions regarding the requested zone change to Neighborhood Development District, or NDD, places substantial consideration for this specific zone change and master plan on neighborhood concerns. The following summarizes our primary concerns with this plan as proposed. We reference directly the town's documents, zoning regulations, and plan of conservation and development. Per Stonington Regulations, NDD 7.21.1.1 General, we do not see where this plan as proposed can assure the Mystic Fire District, Mystic River Park Commission that this plan's existence and future plans will enhance and not disrupt the surrounding residential neighborhood. In fact, we see assurances to the contrary. This plan, as proposed, will result in significant disruption and no enhancement to our property, the users of our property, nor to the taxpayers who support and maintain it. Per 7.21.2, Statement of Purpose, we don't see how this proposal in any way will maintain and enhance compatibility with surrounding neighborhoods. Per 7.21.2.1, we also see conflicts with POCD Section 8 villages. This proposal does not provide for everyday village needs in the form of added services or benefits for our properties, the Mystic Fire District residents, or visitors to our properties. This plan does not propose Mystic village-scale residential development, nor does it encourage affordable housing options. This plan, as proposed, does not positively address parking issues. In fact, it worsens the problem. The proposal clearly states that it does not provide adequate parking on site. Per 7.21.2.2, we're particularly concerned about adequate buffers, promotion of pedestrian safety, provision for adequate parking, prevention of glare to adjacent properties from lighting on site. Per 7.21.3.2, any addition to the master plan must comply with the criteria of section .21.2, and any such change shall be made in such a way as to not disrupt the surrounding residential neighborhood. Additionally, we have the following concerns. Parking. Our respective parking lots on Cottrell Street next to the Scott Center and Washington Street at the Children's Playground are for our tenants, their guests, and visitors who use the playground. Our parking spaces are already overburdened by visitors who do not meet the above criteria, causing hardship for our paying tenants. This proposal does not provide the required parking spaces on the current Seaport Marine site to be developed. 375 spaces required versus 316 spaces on site. This significant shortage of on-site parking proposed in this master plan will further exacerbate the situation. We vehemently request that Planning and Zoning Commission require that all parking assigned to this proposal be located solely and completely on the current Seaport Marine site. Ideally, they should have designated on-site employee parking. The only enhancement we imagine this plan could provide to our properties would be to provide surplus on-site parking rather than just the minimum required spaces. This proposal does neither. Public safety. We are concerned about the added traffic in this area of Washington and Willow Streets. The roads are in poor condition and there are no sidewalks, yet there is much foot traffic, particularly children. Also, on nights when there are concerts in the park, a considerable number of residents from the Apple Rehab Nursing Home traverse Washington Street in wheelchairs. This plan, as proposed, will seriously impact public safety. Buffer to the children's park. This is currently a quiet, sunny neighborhood children's playground park. If the final master plan includes the proposed 45-room hotel, then there should be a significant buffer between the hotel and the playground. Not only does this building, as proposed, detract from the quiet residential neighborhood, creating more of a Main Street environment, but by reaching a maximum height of 67 feet, this will cast a significant shadow across Washington Street and our park for periods of time every day, similar to the way the main block does on West Main Street. Wear and tear on the park grounds. As proposed, this plan will result in added use and wear and tear to the Mystic River Park grounds and facilities, adding to our maintenance costs. These costs are borne by the Mystic Fire District residents. Getting to the end. Public restrooms. There don't appear to be any public restrooms included in this proposal. The developer is creating public attractions, yet provides no respective public accommodations. This will put an added burden on the current Mystic River Park restroom facilities, which are currently provided and maintained by Mystic River Fire District and Town of Stonington taxpayers. We suggest that additional public restrooms and a plan for their ongoing maintenance should be included in this plan. Noise, we strive to respect our neighbors' quality of life as well as that of our own residential tenants. As a marina, Seaport Marine's current primary activity is limited to typical daytime working hours, the exception being the Red 36 restaurant. We are concerned that the significant increase in after-hours activity expected due to the hotel, an additional restaurant, and any activities that will take place at the Marine Services Building and Plaza will infringe upon and degrade and detract, not enhance, the quality of life of our neighbors, tenants, and visitors to our property. Respectfully, Chuck Stevens, Chairman, Mystic River Park Commission. Thank you.
Thank you. Next 10. I think it's Brian, whoever lives at 9 Haley Street. Jay Taylor, Taylor Heel, Shannon Lake, Spiral Bonds, Alan Struck, 44 Home Street, Cynthia Warren, and Stephen Habash, 19 Velvet Lane, and Colin Makia, 20 Jackson Avenue.
It's Bruce McMahon. Did he say Brian?
Yeah, go right ahead.
It's Bruce. This is Bruce McMahon. I live on Haley Street, and my major concern is ignoring the DEEP recommendations. I'm really concerned about that. I started a group here called Seacrest, Southeastern Connecticut River Estuary Stewardship. And I have to tell you that there are coves here in this area have to be the cleanest, the healthiest rather, coves in the state of Connecticut. So this town is the jewel of the EPA in terms of that. That's my opinion, and I've heard it from them also. So to ignore them, I think, is a mistake. The other problem you have is something no one wants to talk about, and that's sewage. It did get mentioned once. The Mystic plant is at 80% or over. You want to be no higher than 80%. That gives you a buffer zone. Now, there's a $2 million bond, which I totally agree with. That's going to supply 2 pumps, 2 brand-new pumps to ship the excess from Mystic to the borough plant. Also in the $2 million bond is a upgrade of the borough facility. Now, with the development that hotel, which can be seen from the turnpike, that this is huge. And I heard another hotel and then the medical building. There's nowhere else for the sewage to go except the borough. Now, that's a small plant. So I'm saying that one of the things you might want to consider is that this could be a problem if if you allow this and they're half in development and we have no more room. Well, they're going to say, that's your problem. You gave us permission, and then we have to build either another sewage treatment plant or put an addition. We will not be able to build one, I believe, in the borough or an addition there. That's fenced in for a reason. So, and that's the borough, I mean, the sewage treatment plant is not cheap. Now, sometimes you have to dig up the roads for extra pipes. So that's going to be paid for by the Stonington taxpayer. And if this is the case, I'm saying I think it's highly probable. And then once again, the taxpayer pays for someone to get, well, megabucks. I'm not saying the whole program is bad, but the hotel and the houses and destroying the environment on the east side, that little cove. I see all kinds of animals there all the time, and that's going to be gone, including the trees, where the night heron nests. Gorgeous bird, only seen at dusk or early morning because it's a night heron. Thank you very much.
I guess I can go. My name's Taylor Heel. I live on 9 Jackson Ave. I've been there for 10 years. I was going to talk about some of the things in the NDD, and those have already been said in opposition, of which I agree with a lot of them. I know that some of the fours and the people that are in favor of the proposition, a lot of it was based on economic advantages to their businesses. And I get that. My background is a Babson College grad, economics, entrepreneurial studies. I dealt with small town restaurant business, and I now deal with large international and national financial software. So I understand the economic benefit that is of potential here. But we're not just talking about economic benefit. We're also talking about neighborhoods, surrounding neighborhoods, traffic patterns, safety for kids. I have a 9-year-old son who, when we wait on Jackson Ave and Washington Street right now today without the traffic that's potentially going to come through there, I watch cars blow that stop sign every day. There's no sidewalks. On Jackson Ave, if you have cars parked on both sides of the street, it's a one-way street at that point. It's literally not passable. So there's a lot of downsides that I see to that. I don't see development on that plot as a downside in its entirety. I just think that what's proposed right now, I heard a lot of talk of minimizing the impact, but what I see is minimizing with maximizing what's available to be put there. It's not minimizing and let's not maximize what can be put on that lot. It's let's minimize, but let's put as much there as we can. And that's kind of what it was proposed and how it came across to me today. One of the other things that was talked about that I wanted to one of my reasons for opposition is tourism today that we get is drawn to Mystic because of the quaint village, the town that we have. And if we continue to expand, the question becomes, when is enough enough? And at what point does tourism no longer get drawn there because we've lost that sense of what Mystic is made up of today? Those are the reasons that right now I'm opposing this as it stands. We heard about compatibility, but compatibility is also defined as a state in which things are able to exist or occur together without problems or conflict. And clearly there are problems and conflict with what is being proposed today. So those are some of the reasons I oppose this today. Thank you for your time.
My name's Steve Hobeika. I live in Mystic. I oppose this for the following reasons. I believe it's going to increase congestion of cars. It has inadequate parking. I did a rough calculation for the 318 cars doing 2 trips down 27, and I came up with roughly 1.5 miles to 1.75 miles of additional cars going down the road. So I also feel that when we're proposing neighborhood development districts, the neighborhoods adjacent to these developments should buy into it. And that's clearly not the case here. And I also feel the buildings are too large, and I think the DEP had an excellent point in regard to storm surges. If we've missed a direct hit from hurricanes for many years, but I would hate to think of being directly hit by a hurricane and having a lot of people on this site. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Shauna Lake. I'm a 20-year resident of Stonington and a recently moved to 15 Washington Street. I have the unique privilege of living there and then walking down Washington Street and working in the Mystic Park buildings. So every single day I walk down that street that it's not currently safe, and so it's hard to understand how this would make it better. I think the traffic plan, through all the confusing language, ultimately says there is increased traffic on Washington Street in both directions and also on Willow Street. So the commission needs to consider the impact of the traffic on the neighborhood, I think. I think what the Mystic Fire District summarized most of the points I was going to make about how there seems to be conflict with the NDD regs for not disrupting but enhancing the neighborhood. And so we're talking about like the core neighborhood, obviously, of like Washington and Willow and Jackson and many of the neighbors who've spoken, because it's hard for us to imagine how it will be enhanced. And then finally, so I don't want to reiterate all the ways that they said it seems to conflict with the NDD, but I reinforce that, as well as the parts of the POCD that have been mentioned. Finally, I also have another unique perspective in the sense that I've actually run as a project manager bulkhead construction projects, dredging projects in industrial settings. And I understand that there'll be increased coastal resiliency for that footprint because they're going to fix the bulkhead that they've left in disrepair to fall into the river. And they're going to maintain the wetlands that are already there. But don't be misled to think that it provides any coastal resiliency to any other part of the town, because it's not increasing the height of any flood protection. So just to make sure when we talk coastal resiliency that it's specifically their footprint there, it's not really helping the town, it's just helping that area flood from the riverside. And the last thing I wanted to say was, I think it's inappropriate to compare the height of the buildings along Route 1 and East Main Street to Washington Street and Cottrell Street, because that really isn't part of the nature of the village down there. And so it's just going to feel like another main street down there with the height of the buildings right along Washington. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Cynthia Warren. I live on High Street in Mystic. When I heard about Smiler's Wharf, I asked myself, who's smiling? Smiler's Wharf is going to degrade the character of the town and the quality of life of its residents, especially those of us whose memories of Mystic are long and deep. I come from a family that goes back 5 generations, here, more than 125 years of continuous residence and contribution. My great-grandfather Moses Craig came over on a boat from Scotland. He settled here and had a blacksmith shop on a dock on Water Street across from the Daniel Packer Inn. Two of his sons, William and Charles Craig, became builders of houses here, not sea captains' houses, but modest Cape houses for working-class people to raise a family. Their houses can be found on both sides of Mystic. Charles Craig's house on 8 Godfrey Street bears a historic plaque. My mother was born in the house at 44 Church Street on the Stonington side, and she died in her own grammar school, now Academy Point Assisted Living, on the Groton side. My grandmother died in the house at 21 Godfrey Street, a house my grandfather built. 4 generations of Craigs are buried on both sides of Mystic. When I was a kid, my extended family lived on both sides of the river, but all of us only a brief walk from downtown Mystic where we could buy anything we needed. We all said we were from Mystic, not Stonington or Groton. My grandmother worked in the velvet mill. My mother's cousin, daughter of Charles Craig, was an executive secretary at the Mystic Seaport. My aunt was a bookkeeper at the Mystic Shipyard. Extended family and close family friends worked as laborers at the Post Boatyard, now owned by Seaport Marine. My uncle slaked his thirst at John's Bar, now demolished for a parking lot. My house in Mystic has been continuously occupied by a family member for 61 years. We have roots and longevity. I know the authentic Mystic from 50 years ago, before tourism got its grip. Downtown was Main Street, USA. Businesses were locally owned. There was no Mystic brand, which means it had not been corporatized. It was largely working class. Its downtown met all our daily needs and now meets none. Even my bank is gone. Who's smiling? Not me. This project is not going to profit or benefit me. Tourism and development in Mystic has made my quality of life go steadily down. A traffic nightmare already exists, and my house is one of the most severely impacted. Route 1 runs along its side. In the summer, traffic backs up for the bridge once an hour from morning till evening right next to my house. They keep their motors idling, throw garbage in my yard, blast music. I can't keep my windows open on the north side or enjoy sitting on my porch. I wear earplugs in the house. It didn't used to be like this. Who is smiling? We have reached the tipping point. Unlike those in this tourism gold rush who claimed this project is just the spark of an explosion to develop the shoreline, I call for a moratorium on big projects like Smiler's Wharf and a positive model of sustainable tourism that will preserve the original character of Mystic as a quaint, historic New England village where residents matter as much as tourists. Mystic is already overdeveloped. The woods continue to disappear at an alarming rate. This town is being corporatized and urbanized. Tall buildings, hardened riverfronts, bright lights, incessant traffic, redundant shopping, a fetishized drawbridge, heavy delivery trucks with... It is. I got cotton mouth. I need water. I'm almost finished, okay? A fetishized drawbridge, heavy delivery trucks with power brakes, and noise, especially noise from the custom motorcycle mufflers and hot rod engines that roar up Baptist Hill past my house. Baptist Hill has become a racetrack for those leaving town after idling on the Stonington side for the bridge. Who's smiling? Mystic is already overdeveloped. The planners, town organizers know it, constantly racking their brains for where to put more cars. And just look at the proliferation of signs down there in the heart of the village, the mother lode of this gold rush. There are so many signs that you don't know which way to turn. This is tourism in overdrive. The frenzy is egregious. It's a gold rush. It's a mythical creation called Mystic Country. announced on a sign at the Amtrak station, but Mystic Country doesn't exist. It is as fictional as Shangri-La. If this is such a paradise, why do they want to pave it for more parking? Why do they want to destroy its character and threaten its environment? This development model is not sustainable.
It's a tough act to follow. My name is Spiros Barris. I've lived in Mystic for 35 years and on Washington Street for 15 years. I moved to Washington Street specifically because it is a quiet street with little traffic and a marina across the street from my house. I just want to share my personal experience with the traffic since everything else has pretty much been said, plus some. The NDD regulations specifically state, as has been pointed out already, but cannot be overemphasized, that a zone change to an NDD will, quote, enhance and not disrupt the surrounding residential neighborhood. The traffic issues alone will dramatically disrupt the neighborhood. Washington and Willow Street are commonly used by pedestrians, families with children walking to the park and playground, cyclists and runners wanting to avoid Route 1, residents of Apple Rehab in wheelchairs going to the park. All day long there are people running, riding, and walking up and down Washington and Willow Street. Because they are narrow and have no sidewalks, if there are two cars coming in opposing directions, either the pedestrians or one of the cars has to pull over to the side of the road to let the other pass. Two cars can barely pass each other in opposite directions, and with anything larger than a car, one vehicle has to pull over to let the other pass. How could the traffic that would be generated by a 45-room hotel, a 200-seat restaurant, 25 apartments, 22 additional residential units, and a community event space, including employee vehicles, delivery trucks, service vehicles, garbage trucks, etc., all passing through these narrow residential streets, how could all this additional traffic not disrupt the neighborhood? Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Adam Strelzik. I live on 44 Home Street. And I'm also going to speak for a good friend of mine and colleague, the Marikas. They're on 20 Jackson Ave. They were here a couple weeks ago, but they can't make it now because they had to go back to Washington State. So they wrote here that in 2004, they've owned their house for about 30 years in their family. They bought it from their parents. It is a three-family. It's the one that you saw in some of the pictures with the three big porches. They did write that in 2014, they applied for several variances, one of which included a side porch expansion, which was denied based on the environmental impact to the wetlands area behind the property. This is the same wetland area which would be affected by the Smiler's Wharf project. It would be very inconsistent for the town of Stonington to accept such a project, which will certainly have a significant environmental impact on what wetlands remain in downtown Mystic. Since Red 36 was opened, they wrote, a significant amount of new traffic has been observed both on Jackson Ave and Washington Street, often at speeds well above the local speed limit. In a residential area, the additional traffic not only will present severe congestion in an already congested downtown area, but also poses risks to families who used to enjoy a safe walkable area. As residents of Jackson Ave, we oppose this project based on the environmental impact to the area, the increased traffic in downtown Mystic, and the safety of children and families using this area. Okay, that's for the 20 Jackson Street family. For me, public access, really, I like it. I want to say thank you for thinking of that and not just privatizing the shoreline, because we suffer from that around here. The economic benefit, that's all great, right? Big yachts, sure, those are pretty awesome. I hope they drive my sons to have hunger for success when they see them. But we need to support something like this. However, I think as proposed, it's too tall, it's too many rooms, or apartments, not enough boatyard. It really doesn't seem to be boatyard at all. And is it 67 or 74 feet? I'm not really sure. We need to maintain our charm in this town, and this project does touch on a lot of that. Towns like Booth Bay, Maine, Telluride, Colorado, they've all spent a lot of time and effort trying to preserve their charm that they have in those communities, and I think we fall a little short of that. So we don't really need another Newport, is kind of what my wife and I say at home, and for big yachts, and we don't really take our families there, and there's a lot of reason for that. Thanks.
Thank you. Is that it?
No, you never called me. My name is on the list.
Well, I'm going by numbers.
Yeah, we were on the list last time.
Okay.
So, and we have.
Yeah, okay, go right ahead.
Okay, so my name is Heidi Farrier, and I live at 42 Holmes Street, and I am the mother of 2 small children. We have already fought to get a stop sign put on Holmes Street because the traffic there is out of control. And people also use that as a speedway into and out of town. So I am concerned, and I don't want to leave the traffic to the police. Well, the police will figure it out later. I want that to be considered as part of the whole project. I do like the fact that some sort of development will need to go there. You can't just leave those buildings sitting at that parcel. But I do worry because my kids use the playground, and I know there's a lot of talk about there not being a lot of, children households, but if you go to the playground, you will see nothing but children on their bikes and, strollers and parents. And we don't take Holmes Street home. We go down Willow because it's safer. And every time my kids ride their bike on Holmes, my heart is in my throat that they're going to tumble off into the street and get hit by a car because the people just don't obey the traffic and nobody's enforcing it like I wish that they would. We are concerned about the sewage. I would love to see more public boat access. That would be great. However, like a year ago, we were here for the rezoning and the purchasing of the boathouse property, and it is sitting there with no public access. And also, so there's no boating there, even though that's what we bought it for. And the boat launch at Bay Street has been shut down. So there's other accesses that are available to us that we're not taking advantage of. So those are some of the concerns. I would like to see something new go there, but these are things that we would like to give more serious thought to. So
Thank you.
Thank you.
No, we're going to have, we're halfway through the opposition list. So it's 11 o'clock. So we'll continue this at 7 o'clock on July 8th, right here.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman, a point of order, please. I want to bring to the Commission's attention, and I just would ask, as a matter of just procedure, that this is, if you're going to continue the hearing, it's an open public hearing, and therefore the applicant cannot have direct or indirect contact through the Commission unless it goes through your staff. And we had an issue that came up last Friday where we had a member of the public inappropriately contact members of the Commission via email. And
I announced that before.
Right. I just want to make sure that it goes for the applicant, but also whether you're a proponent or opponent, you can't talk to the Commission between now and the
Even though we'd like to talk to you, we can't talk to you until after this.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Sorry about that. 7 o'clock. 7? 6?
Did we need a motion to continue the hearing?
6 o'clock in the 8th?
It can be.
7. No, I told him 7.
7.
All right, do I hear a motion to continue the hearing?
So moved.
No, to continue. So moved. Do I hear a second? Second. All those in favor? Aye. We have another zoning meeting tomorrow night at 7 o'clock at Mystic Middle School if anyone would like to come.
And this issue will not be on the agenda of tomorrows meeting.
This will not, no.